Hello, everybody. What an awesome day this has been. I mean, we literally have had some of the world's greatest thought leaders, activists, organizers, and educators to be a part of this JusticeCon 2020, a path towards freedom. As we continue on this day, we are excited now to welcome to the stage of JusticeCon 2020, my dear Sister Joy Marie McKenzie. Joy, we welcome you. Hello, Joy. How are you?
Hey, it's good to see you.
And we want to welcome to the stage none other than the United States Senator from New Jersey, Senator Cory Booker.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be on. Good to see you too, Joy Marie.
Yes, nice to see you,
everybody. Well, I want to thank you both for taking the time out to lead us in this conversation about where do we go from here. And so, Senator and Joy Marie, we'll see you all shortly.
Thank you, Rev Green, my brother. Thank you so much.
Love you.
All right. So, Cory, Senator Booker, you've been busy today.
Yes.
I caught your conversation at the root. So I don't know if the ancestors needed you to work this hard on Juneteenth, but you have been working today.
I appreciate that, Joy Marie. And you can call me Cory. Actually, that makes me feel more like it's a Friday than.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so please, call me Cory.
Awesome. Well, as you already know, and as many that are watching know, there's been ongoing protests now for the second week for the movement of Black lives in response to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and just the pain, the overall pain and trauma that we've been facing for centuries in these United States. And I believe it's a turning point, or maybe another turning point, that the status quo, which has not been working for Black people in this country, needs to be shifted from healthcare to education to police reforming. I mean, probably every single sector of our society, and you have been on the front lines, dedicated to the state of New Jersey, but also dedicated to the citizens, the Black citizens in these United States. I can tell you right now, I'm hunkered down in Maryland because I hate to say I fled, but I did. I fled New York City because of COVID. So many of my coworkers were hospitalized because of COVID. And we have an infant son, and so we decided to come to Maryland where my parents live. So dealing with the anxiety and trauma of that, then seeing George Floyd, I actually haven't even seen the video because I don't need to see it. I don't need to see another Black man dying at the hands of police. I am frustrated, angry, tired, exhausted. But how would you describe this sort of current moment that we're all sort of facing right now?
I mean, I think that, to be Black in America is to understand the fragility of life because you've grown up in a culture that has always had to put safety and security as a priority. And from being a young kid growing up, having parents teaching me how to deal with police, the danger that exists therein. I was a big young man. I was over 6 feet tall by the 8th grade.
Oh, wow.
And so they knew that this world was going to see me as a threat and therefore justify themselves in potential disaster. So I think that it's a part of our culture, this survival, this need to survive, and not even just with police. You have environmental toxins poisoning families and communities. You have a mass incarceration, segregation still of communities. I can go through it all. So I think what happened was we saw a succession of events that drove not just us, but even other people's circles of awareness and empathy. When you see Ahmaud Arbery just jogging in his neighborhood, Breonna Taylor just sleeping in her home, a man just out bird watching, and as somebody tries to weaponize the police. And then, of course, you saw, as you said, a torture murder in broad daylight with a bravado of savage cruelty. And so I think it's been very triggering to a lot of people. In the same way that 4 girls dying in a bombing in Birmingham was, in the same way that Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner dying in Mississippi was, in the same way that Emmett Till and what the courageous Mamie Till did. And now we have this incredible outpouring of people in a way that I've never seen in my life. All 50 states, more than a dozen countries. I think there are 15, 16 countries now. So you see all globally a reaction to this. And I know as a legislator, I introduced police reform bills years ago, but now suddenly have a bill that has 40 senators on it, close to 40 senators, the majority of the House of Representatives. We've all collaborated on a bill that has widespread support that wouldn't have been possible a month ago. So something is happening now, but I just want folks to understand that we're at the foothills of a movement, and this still could become just a moment. We've got to keep and sustain a movement because we're starting to see some change happening from corporations, as I think the last panel was mentioning, from NASCAR to the NFL. You're starting to see this the frozen blocks of injustice beginning to soften, but we've got to keep going. And I'm hoping that activists hear me and sustain their levels of activism, creative artistry out there in the streets, as well as other forms of protest. We've just got to keep it going.
Yeah, and you spoke about your bill, qualified immunity. I want to talk about that. Like you mentioned, this whole Amy Cooper incident. I live in Brooklyn, and so much of what we hear about, racism is that it's in the South, it's in the Midwest, it's not in the North. But this was New York City, Central Park. A woman trying to, using her privilege to weaponize the police against this man who just wanted to watch birds, just chilling. And you spoke about your bill, but how does your bill help people take accountability, have there be some sort of accountability for things that are happening to Black Americans? I mean, your bill is about the police specifically, but talk about your bill, police accountability, and then also ways in which that us citizens can just have accountability across the board.
Well, let's recognize the civil rights movement was about a culture change, awareness, and change. But yet, King just said, I can't legislate you to love me, but I can pass legislation to stop you from lynching me. We can't legislate to change a man's heart, but we can legislate to restrain the heartless. So there's a larger movement that has to go on in our country, but we decided to write a bill that would stop Black people from being killed by creating real accountability in policing. And accountability has to have three things. It has to have standards. And so we decided to establish clear standards: no chokehold, no racial, religious profiling, no knock warrants. Just what are the standards of what we have to do? Then the second thing is you've got to measure being able to have transparency. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. So we create the greatest ever police transparency, where now every department has to publish their use of force, publish misconduct, and more information, so that people can say, is my police department violating rights in their patterns and practices? You can have a vision to that. And the last thing, which is most important, which we all had, even growing up with our parents. I know you're in your parents' home, but you can think back to the days where your parents set a standard. If you broke that standard, there were some consequences to pay in that household.
Yes, Lord, there were.
Yes, amen, hallelujah. My mom, still to this day, 80-year-old woman says, "Don't think you're too big for me to bend over my knee." And I'm like, yes, Mom, yes, Mom.
Yeah, Mom, do not listen.
Yeah, yes.
I am too old.
So if a police officer does wrong and there's no consequences, no teeth, you have no worry about federal prosecution. You have no worry about being brought into civil court and facing civil rights, what they call 1983 charges. Then that's not going to happen. So we actually changed the standards. No qualified immunity, as you mentioned before, on the civil side, and then on the criminal side, on the federal standard, is something called willfulness. You have to prove that a police officer willfully did that. Now, that's a hard thing to do. When Eric Garner was in a chokehold, you have to say you were intending to kill him. You were thinking it over, as opposed to reckless disregard. That's the standard we want to set. Still a high standard, but easier to hit than trying to get into somebody's head.
Right.
And so that's basically the bill that is a very narrowly, Joy Marie, a very narrowly tailored bill, because what I want to tell you from my heart is it's not enough. We need to be a society, as artists of activism are calling for right now, that says, wait a minute, why are we dealing with mental health issues? Because Black people are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by police than someone white. Someone who's got a mental illness, well over 10 times more likely to be killed by the police.
Right.
So we're dealing with mental illness with police and prisons. We're dealing with addiction. I'm in Newark. Right across the street from me is an incredible drug treatment program called Integrity House. You talk to people there, there's dozens of arrests before they got the treatment that they needed. Why are we dealing with poverty? We've criminalized poverty. There's so many issues in our society that we have chosen explicitly or complicitly to deal with through police and prisons and jails. And it demeans humanity, degrades human beings. It is more expensive, more dangerous. And so there's a larger movement to say, what does public safety mean? Does it mean having every corner of America having a police officer on it? Or does it mean that we are a society that sees no need for that when you invest in people who are hurt, harmed, or fragile, to elevate human potential, to not defund education, to make sure that we are a society that is those ideals of love? What would a loving society do for someone with mental illness? What would a loving society
for America? That's going to be tough for us to live up to.
Yeah, but we can. And there are enough pilot programs. As a guy who loves policy innovators, there are enough pilot programs around America that have shown that you can reduce your reliance on police, courts, prisons, jails, and hospital emergency rooms by investing in people, and it's cheaper for the taxpayer. And so that's why this ideal of a beloved society, love is not sentiment, love is sacrifice, love is service, love is strong. What we're showing now is weakness, because we're saying we can't deal with mental health, so let's throw people away. We can't deal with addiction, so let's throw people away. We can't deal with Black bodies, so let's attack them, kill them, or throw them in jails. And that's weakness. That's a weak society, not one that shows the strength of what we are capable of.
I love that. I love that. I can't believe they're telling me we have 15 minutes left and I have so many more questions. But so there's bills, right? There's bills in place. There's organizations all across America who are doing amazing work. They're seeing wins. They're seeing bills being put into place, amendments happening. But how can we as a collective, as a Black community, sort of galvanize, better organized to ensure that every pocket from New York to Galveston sees this change? Because it really does happen a lot of times at the local levels.
Well, first of all, first of all, trust in the larger community that if we play our part. I used to be this, I was the number 4 in basketball, working hard. I just trusted my point guard had certain things.
Right.
So it just starts with you. What are you doing? And if, you and I, Joy Marie, we were never called to do freedom rides. We were never called to do sit-ins. We were never called to register people to vote when that got you killed. We are benefiting from people who put real sacrifices. So the question I often ask myself, am I proving worthy of those sacrifices? Because as my father used to say, boy, don't walk around this house like you hit a triple. You were born on third base. Well, I was not born in slavery or Jim Crow or during the Black Codes, during lynching. I was born at a time when I have tools that my parents couldn't even imagine.
Yes.
And so the first thing is what am I doing? What is the modern day of those people? Harriet Tubman would have died unknown had it not been for her story being recounted. Like, what am I doing to try to be the Ella Baker spirit, the Harriet Tubman spirit, the Mary McLeod Bethune spirit right now in my own life? Because my biggest worry right now are the people who are sitting on the sidelines and not trying to find ways to push themselves into being more creative and more engaged. And so I just hope everybody thinks about that. And then a lot of things are going to blossom from that. The more activity, especially because we are a more hyper-connected society than ever before. Right. There's a democratization of information, and I mean, one person who puts a video out there, next thing you know, it could be liked by millions of people, get millions of impressions. We've all got to be just pushing out there, challenging, making comfortable people disturbed, and disturbed people more comfortable.
Yeah, I love that. And speaking on that note, I love your idea of everyone sort of doing their part, because a lot of us, like myself, I was silent on social media for a long time, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I was so angry. And sometimes when you're angry, at least for me, I don't like to speak because I could be misunderstood, or I can't get my point across. And so for a lot of us who, didn't get a law degree, but got a journalism degree, we're struggling with what to do and also how to equip ourselves for the journey, because this will not be, it won't be an easy road. Like you said, we're at the foothills. So we have a long, long way to go. For people who might be tired already, like myself, what advice would you give them to make sure they have stamina for the journey?
Yes. Well, look, I have not been this emotionally tired in a while, because it's hard out here. And I think we're all being triggered and traumatized. And I found myself, getting very emotional over, memories that are coming back of slights and insults and degradation that you push down just to cope. And now it's coming up. So I'm not one that is going to tell you that this is going to be easy, that we don't need to find ways to nurture ourselves and nourish ourselves. I've been like, at night, I'm like, find some comedian. Like when, Michael Che, I was like, thank you, brother. Well, I was like, oh, thank you. Because we need that in the same way my father's generation needed Richard Pryor and others. So I just find ways to nurture yourself. But remember, be in community, because you're not alone. You're not. Connect with somebody. Call somebody you haven't talked to in a while. I've talked to college friends, law school friends, who we were in the same space, kind of isolated, feeling like we're alone, swimming in our torrent of emotions. But always, always with the higher expectation that we know that we can't reside there. That's not our home. We're sojourners. We've got to keep pushing this movement forward, keep participating. Sometimes you got to step off the field for a little while, but you got to get back in the game after that 2 or 3 plays go by, and keep going at it.
Yes. And, it's 2020. So I would be remiss if I did not speak to a, former presidential candidate about voting and the importance of that. But I have to be honest with you, a lot of people, they would have rather voted for you, right? I still can. But the nominees aren't who they wanted. But why is it still important for us to vote, even when we might not be the most excited? Listen, I'm still voting for Biden, so y'all just get it together. I'm excited about Biden. I know that he has an agenda for Black America, but people that might not be as excited as I am, what do you want to make sure they're at the polls? Yeah,
and so first of all, one of my heroes, a guy named Brian Stevenson, who I know you know, Joy Marie, wrote a book called Just Mercy. Please listen to it. It's now a movie. I haven't seen the movie, but
it's so good. It's so good.
The book is amazing. So I imagine the movie is. He's one of my favorite quotes of his all time was that we have a criminal justice system that treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. Mm-hmm. So it was the 2016 election, and a lot of people were saying this to me, what does it matter? I don't like this candidate, da, da, da. And then he just busted out this video. I wish I could find it, where he just said, I wish I was privileged enough. The people I represent who live at the margins of society, this is life or death for them. And then he just started breaking down the people who are immigrants, the people who are on death row, all the people that it was literally like, you're just saying, I don't know if I like him or not. And I can literally tell you, as a guy that I was going from Obama to Trump, that it is life or death. I remember seeing the calculations that when he rolled back the methane rule, clean power, there literally are actuarial tables that say this many more people will die from respiratory diseases. Remember, asthma, a Black kid with asthma is 10 times more likely to die from asthma complications than a white kid with asthma. So that's life or death. I know right now that there are things on environmental justice that are life or death between these two people. I could keep going on by saying the things that are going to happen. So if you're so comfortable with life that it doesn't matter if you vote or not, and you don't realize that on this ballot is gun control and common sense gun safety, on this ballot is access to health care, which again, I can show you the tables, not having health care leads to higher death rates. On this ballot is climate change. On this ballot is the policing legislation that probably can't get done under Mitch McConnell, so which can save lives. Mm-hmm. So I don't. If you feel so privileged that it doesn't matter the outcome of an election, you're going to be okay. Think about all those people who live at the margins. I just right before this, I did an interview with my girlfriend, who is a leader on She was a founder of Voto Latino, and we were talking about
Rosario Dawson. For those who don't know,
I'm sorry.
I got you, Senator.
Thank you very much. You're not getting me in trouble.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about dreamers and all the people that are living in massive insecurity, suicide rates she mentioned, anxiety, just not knowing. So there's so much on this ballot that please have a greater love than one that is selfish. Have a love that says, you know what, I'm going to vote because so many issues affecting my neighbors are going to be on this ballot.
Yeah, wow. I believe I have about 5 minutes. And
you see Reverend Green trying to break back into our conversation. You see?
I know. Okay, fine. Okay, so fine. I was going to ignore it, but look,
he's a brother. I can't hide from him. He has my cell phone number.
I was on a roll, but fine. Keep laughing. But I will ask Reverend Green. He wants us to sort of go back to the bill that you were speaking about. And he asks, does your bill also prevent officers listed on the registry from being hired by another police department in our country?
Yes. So next question. We just got to give him that quick yes.
Okay. Yes. I like your style. But to end this amazing conversation, I would love to talk to you about your vision for Black America.
Yeah.
We're hurting, we're tired, but we know that, but we're not dead, right?
Yeah.
And today is a celebratory day for many Black Americans who were enslaved in this country, who built this country, who despite every reason not to love this country, still love this country and want to see it do better and be better. For what is your vision for Black America in this time?
So I want to recognize that you and I sitting here having this conversation, as so many others, I saw the panel before this, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams.
Yes.
They are profoundly looking down on ourselves with pride and love. But at the same time, I'm sure they're like, hey, baby, you got a lot more work to do. Mm-hmm. Because of how the issues of their generation, we are still not fully, we have not overcome, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so my vision for Black America is vast. It has to deal with everything from economic opportunity, Black entrepreneurialism. I mean, you know how many more Black women businesses there would be in America if there was just access to capital for them, fair access to capital. So I could go through all of that, but I want to make it more urgent because I live down the street here from some high rises, a place called Brick Towers. There was a crew of kids that hung out in that lobby. I watched them grow up. By the time I was mayor, they were in high school. Hassan Washington was the first of that crew to die. And most of that crew now is dead. The last person was Shahad Smith, killed by an assault rifle in 2018 at the top of my block.
Wow.
And so for me to find myself now that I'm 50 and I'm having to teach Black children survival skills in a way that is not like other communities have to do. That anguishes me. I feel shame in the face of my ancestors who carried the baton so forward, handed it off for me. And I feel like I was still that 20-year-old, 22-year-old that was marching after the Rodney King, trying to keep Black people from being savagely beaten. Mm-hmm. And so I know that there's big issues in inclusion and equity and economic opportunity. I want the Black Wall Street people say that to me and I'm thinking to myself, I want to see another 35 blocks that were bombed to the ground. I want to see that kind of wealth and then abundance and the equality and brotherhood and sisterhood. I want all those things, but I still can't tell you, I've been so emotional because I'd like to just stop Black people from dying like they are.
Yeah.
And dying in ways like, it's not just the violence that the young group of kids, the incredible group of kids that I watched who had more genius than me, more potential than me, but it's just things we don't talk about enough. Why, Ron Finley, if you have a chance, brilliant man, watch his TED Talk. Millions of people have. He's called the Guerrilla Gardener in South Central LA. He goes, in South Central, we got drive-bys and drive-throughs, and the drive-throughs are killing more people than the drive-bys. So we have Black bodies under attack from lead and toxins, from the broken food systems, all the way to police brutality and the proliferation of guns. And so I hate to say it, today I'm sad, I feel grief, as we all probably are hurting. And so while my baseline and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I just want Black people alive, to have a country where they have the same death rates as white people, the same run-ins with the police. I just want equality in life, because the fundamental thing we say in America is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so when I'm twice my age, when I'm a century old, and hopefully they've figured out how to keep us alive. So let's say I make it to the century.
Maybe. I don't know if you want to be around. We'll see.
Let's say I made it to the century mark. I would like to be celebrating a Juneteenth, not just the freedom from slavery, but I want to be able to celebrate the freedom from brutality, the freedom from fear, the freedom from poverty. And I want to be able to join hands with all of America, Black, white, brown, and just say, finally, we are free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last.
Well said. Well, thank you so much, Cory, but I'm going to put some respect on your name. Thank you so much, Senator Booker, for your service, really. I mean, I just have to say, from a citizen, we know it's not easy for our leaders to do what you do. And so we just want to say thank you for your service. It is not a 9-to-5 job, it's 24 hours. And so we really do appreciate what you're doing and what you're going to continue to do for Black America. Thank you.
Thank you for what you are doing. Thank you for your love. And I wish you all the best. Look forward to tell your family I said hello too.
I sure will.
And come back up here to the greater Newark metropolitan area.
We're coming. September. We'll see you then. Thank you so much for joining myself and Senator Booker. And there's another wonderful panel up next. This has been JusticeCon, a path towards freedom.
Amen.